Hi, welcome to Esther's Laguna Woods Show, where every guest matters. Today we have a very special guest. He is a Vietnam War veteran and his name is James Updike. Hi James.
How are you?
So nice to have you here.
Thank you.
You were in the Vietnam War, right?
Right.
How did it start for you?
Well, I was attending college in South Dakota, majoring in pre-med, and this was in 1966. In 1966, if you didn't have some sort of a deferment, like a college deferment, you were almost immediately drafted. So I was having a really good time in college, and I was flunking out. So I finally decided that I probably didn't have the discipline and I didn't want to spend my parents' money any further. So I thought I'll quit college and then I'll join some branch of the military where I won't be shot at. So I quit school, decided I was going to join the Air Force, went down to this recruiting office one day. The Air Force recruiter was closed that day. The Navy recruiter was open, and I thought, well, it's really a silly looking uniform that the guys in the Navy wear, but I figured I'd be aboard a ship, I'd join the Navy, see the world. I thought, okay, this probably is a good thing. Nobody's going to shoot at me on a ship in the Navy. So I walked into the Navy recruiter and told him it was his lucky day that I was there to join the Navy, and he started laughing at me. I thought, this is probably not a good sign, and so when he finally regained his composure, he said, I apologize, but what you need to know is that we have a waiting list that's about 6 months long. I thought, oh my God, I've probably made a really huge tactical error here because I'm not going to last 6 months. I've already quit school. I'm going to get drafted. So I got up to leave, and as I got up, he said, well, what did you want to do in the Navy? And I said, well, I was taking pre-med in school. Sit down, he said, immediately. 2 weeks later, I'm in boot camp in San Diego. And I'm thinking, he obviously saw these incredible qualities in me, so he just moved me up to the head of the list. Well, I was soon to find out that that was not the case, of course. There were 3 of us in our boot camp company that had been guaranteed to go it's called a hospital corps school. So in the Navy, a medic is called a hospital corpsman. So there, like I said, there was 3 of us. Our boot camp company commander, drill sergeant, took the 3 of us aside one day and informed us that the Marine Corps was part of the Department of the Navy. And we said, okay, that's nice. He said, yeah, you probably don't know this, but the Marine Corps gets its doctors, chaplains, dentists, and combat medics from the Navy. At which point, I think we all uttered an expletive and said, oh my God, we have made a mistake. So sure enough, 1.5 years later, I was in Vietnam with a Marine Corps unit being shot at. So.
You were stationed in different places, no?
Well,
you told me.
Yeah, when I got out of boot camp, I went to hospital corps school in San Diego. So
yeah.
I learned to be a hospital corpsman, a medic.
Yeah.
And then I was sent. My first duty station was back at the Naval Training Center after I graduated from hospital corps school, and I was there for, oh golly, I think I was there for, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, and then I got orders to Vietnam.
Yeah.
So in December of 1967, I flew to Vietnam and joined up with the Marine Corps company, my platoon, and was there from December of 67 to December of 68.
In the same place?
Did
they move you around?
Yeah, we moved to several different locations in what was called the I Corps, the northern part of South Vietnam, from the DMZ south to about Da Nang. We were in a number of different locations in that area.
So which one was the worst location for you?
Khe Sanh.
Khe Sanh?
Yeah.
Why?
It became a siege, first of all. We were there from January through the end of April. And Khe Sanh was sort of a strategic location in that General Westmoreland, when Tet hit, in January of 1968. They moved the 26th Marine Regiment, which I was a part of, to Quezon. And the idea was that the Marines were going to hold this area to stop the flow of supplies and troops from North Vietnam, the North Vietnam Army. So we were under siege for 4 months. We basically lived in holes in the ground. Resupply was very, very difficult because it was up in a mountainous area. So the weather was often very cloudy, very foggy. It was difficult, again, to bring in supplies. Plus, the NVA had ringed the whole area around Quezon with artillery and rockets. And a lot of times these were in Laos. And during various phases of that siege, U.S. military forces weren't allowed to attack those units. So we were kind of sitting ducks down below all of this artillery. So we'd get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds of artillery and rockets.
Every day? How often?
Every day.
Every day, hundreds?
Yeah.
And you were underneath, and you were in
Well, we were living in holes in the ground. Some of us had bunkers around the outside. The people that were right near the airstrip got the brunt of it. I was on a hill called Hill 558, which was just to the north east of the combat base. So there's Hill 558, 861, 881, the mountains around it. So we didn't get as much of that incoming. We got our share of it, but not nearly as bad. So we didn't have to live in the kinds of bunkers that the guys around the airbase around the airstrip had to live in. But there was a period of time near the end of the siege when it was so difficult to get resupply that we were down to 1 sea ration meal a day. A sea ration meal isn't very big to begin with. And one a day, I think it's about the hungriest I've been for an extended period of time.
How often? I mean, how long did that last? Like once a day?
I think we were down. That probably lasted about 2 weeks. I think 2.5 weeks.
2 weeks with 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
Must have lost a lot of weight, huh?
It was a great weight loss program, but I didn't have a lot of weight to lose to begin with.
Oh,
A lot different than I am
That's
now.
right. That's right. Much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you had a lot of rats there. I mean, there were a lot of rats and snakes.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Well, you're talking about several thousand Marines in a very, very confined area. Getting rid of waste and trash and garbage is problematic at best in that kind of a situation. You can't just take the stuff and bury it someplace because you're under constant bombardment. So as a result, rats like those kinds of things. So yeah, there were rats everywhere. I mean, you'd wake up in the middle of the night and they'd be scampering across your face. In fact, I had one of the corporals in my platoon. We were sound asleep one night, and all of a sudden I hear this scream. I wake up, turn on my flashlight, I look at him, and he's got a rat hanging on his lip.
That's not funny.
So the poor guy, you don't know whether the rat had rabies or not. So to be on the safe side, I had to send him back down to the air base, once every day, and he'd have to go through these series of rabies shots. And the rabies shots are injections into the stomach muscles. Not pleasant, but that was life at Quezon.
When they were shooting at you, did people get hurt?
Oh, sure.
Every day?
Oh, yeah.
You
Some more than others, but the 26th Marine Regiment took an awful lot of casualties at Quezon.
Yeah, you were telling me that you saw bodies.
Sure.
That from the sun they got like a dark.
Yeah.
Because they were too long in the sun.
Yeah. We had one particular firefight towards the end of the siege when the military command finally decided that they were going to allow the Marines to start extending patrols outside the wire around Quezon Combat Base.
Yeah.
And we had this one battle that took place on this hill, 861 Alpha in Little Saddle. Echo Company had gone up there the day before. Fox Company, my company, went up the next day. Between the two of us, we took a lot of casualties. And the battle lasted most of the day. We came back down to our lines at night, but we had to leave a lot of the bodies there. There was no way to evacuate them, and we weren't able to get back up there for about 2 days. So these were, men that were laying out in the sun, exposed, and that's not a pleasant situation.
Wow, you saw things that not that many people saw.
Yeah, those are things that people shouldn't see.
No, exactly. Yeah. You told me a story about that you were going with somebody and somebody was in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
That one must have been very difficult.
Yeah, that was that same battle, that same particular firefight. I had been in a foxhole. I was treating a couple of guys. This sergeant came crawling into this bomb crater, basically, is what it was, and said, well, I've got a couple of Marines and 2 hospital corpsmen that are pinned down, and they're badly wounded, so I need a corpsman. Come with me.
Yeah.
Fine, I will. So we started crawling down towards this area, and before we left, he said, Doc, whatever you do, don't lift up at all. Stay as close to the ground as you possibly can, because this NVA soldier is right in front of this position, and he's in what they call a spider trap. So just a hole with a very well-disguised camouflage cover on it. So there were Marines on both sides of this spider trap, so they couldn't fire into it, and they couldn't see him.
Yeah.
And the guy would pop out every once in a while, and he was very accurate. So the sergeant again said, whatever you do, don't get up. I don't know what he was thinking, but as we were crawling along, he decided, he turned back to look to see, I guess, if I was still there, and rose up maybe this much, and that sniper popped up and shot him right through the heart.
Wow.
Just killed him immediately.
Isn't that something? And he was the one that said, don't do that.
Yep.
For 1 minute. And
Yep.
Okay, so, and then at one point, you were injured?
Yes.
What happened?
The word complacency comes to mind. So I survived all of this at Quezon, which was a very intense 3-4 months. And we had gone from Quezon to a place called the Rock Pile, and then from the Rock Pile, I think we went to a place called Camp Carroll. And Camp Carroll was a, relatively speaking, secure area. It was right in the middle, between the coast and the Laotian border, and right up near the DMZ. And it was mainly an army base, and the Marines were on the outside. And we were in the process of regrouping and reforming our battalion, the companies, because of all the losses. And every day the NVA would fire these 155 millimeter rounds over our head into the Army compound. And it got to be just, here it comes again. We'd hear them fire, and you'd run out and dive in a trench someplace. So this one day, sure enough, here comes the rounds. I get up, I'm going, they're going over our head, I should be fine. I kind of trot over. Well, that was the day that they fired a round that was short, and it landed almost right in front of me. Fortunately, the force of the blast went out the other way, but I still picked up a couple pieces of shrapnel, one in my leg and one in my arm. And I remember after that happened, I to this day, it's just a vivid recollection. I sit there and I'm feeling no pain immediately. The thing that I felt the most of was I was incredibly surprised and shocked that I got wounded. It's like, this happens to other people. It shouldn't happen to me. And then it started hurting, but I always thought it was interesting that my first reaction was, God, I'm really surprised that this happened.
Isn't that something? That's what people went down in the barrels.
Yeah.
You have to think it's not going to happen to you. If you would think it's going to happen to you, you would never go anywhere.
I think that's true. I mean, that's always been sort of my theory.
Yeah.
When I've become a bit of a history buff over the years, and I've
Yes.
read about the Civil War and World War I, World
Yes.
War II, and
Yes.
especially in the Civil War. I mean, if you can imagine, here you are in a line marching across the field,
Yeah.
and the bullets are flying so much that there are times where they'll find musket balls that have hit one another.
Wow.
The only way that I think that anybody can go through that is that part of your brain, the logical part of your brain says, I
Yeah.
easily get killed or hurt seriously here. But the illogical part of your brain says, it's going to happen to the guy next
Yes,
to me.
it's
It's
not
not going to happen to me. And I think that was the element of surprise that I had when I got wounded. It was like, wow, it's supposed to happen to somebody else, not here.
Yeah, isn't that
Yeah,
something?
interesting.
Yeah. You told me a story about monkeys. I mean, that's sort of like...
yes. All right. I think it was our first or second night when we had landed at Quezon.
Yeah.
Because we had landed, it was raining, it was very cold. Again, it was up in the mountains. And we had begun to dig a trench line
Yeah.
around this hill 558. And there was this very tall elephant grass everywhere. The stuff is very thick, and it's probably 15, 20 feet tall, so you can hardly see through it. And our lines were along this riverbank. Riverbank is probably not a terribly accurate way of putting it, because it was very, very steep, went down to a place called the Roquan River,
Yeah.
and then back up on the other side. So we had dug this trench. We knew that the NVA was out in front of us. Very scary time. You
Yes.
don't know, when you're going to be attacked. And it was the middle of the night, kind of a heightened alert. The word had come down that, oh my God, we could be attacked tonight. Make sure you stay very alert. So we're very alert, very scared. We're very quiet, and all of a sudden, something lands just a few feet away. And it's this thunk, and all you can think of was, oh my God, it's a grenade. And everybody on the line opens up with everything. There's just rounds going everywhere. And there's so much fire going on, you're really not sure whether you're really getting any return fire, but there's a lot going out. So things quiet down. Okay, great. Pretty soon there's another thunk. Oh my God, the line opens up. So, this happened, I don't know, a couple of times during the night. So we get up the next day and go, wow, I wonder, if there's any of the enemy, if we killed any of the enemy over here on the other side. No, we hadn't killed any enemy, but we had killed a couple of rock apes. These small monkeys had picked up rocks and threw them at us. So,
So if there were monkeys over there,
mhm.
there were other animals there too?
Yeah, there was.
What kind of animals?
Well, not so much in the area that we were in, but in some of the jungle areas. I mean, there were tigers, certainly water buffalo everywhere, a lot of poisonous snakes. So it's, the environment in Vietnam is incredibly diverse. The ecology is unbelievable. I'd love to go back someday. Number one, to kind of see some of the areas that I was in, but just to be able to experience some of the biology and the ecology in Vietnam. It's a very, very rich, biodiverse country.
Do you think it's a good idea for you to go back there?
Yeah, I think so. I
so.
think that there's, still some closure.
Yes, I think that would be a good
that
idea.
I'd like to go through. And I belong to an association called Quezon Veterans Association.
Yeah.
And a number of people in that association have gone back to Vietnam, and I've seen pictures that they've taken.
Yes.
It looks so completely different. Because, of course, when we were there, there's artillery, there's bombardments. The B-52s were flying in support of the combat base there at Quezon.
Yeah.
And they're dropping tens of thousands of pounds of munitions out in front of us. After a while, the place looked like a desert. And I've seen, again, pictures now. That has all grown back. I mean, it's hard to even pick out where the airbase was, where the airstrip was.
Yeah.
You can kind of get a general idea of the area. But I think it would really be interesting to go back and see.
So how did they feel about it, that they went back there? How did they feel about it?
It was closure for a lot of them. They met a lot of Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Vietnamese that were part of the North Vietnamese regular army, that were part of the Viet Cong, and that was a healing for both people.
Yeah.
They said that the Vietnamese were just incredibly gracious, very warm people, despite everything that they've had to go through for an incredibly long period of time, not just with us, but with the French and with the Japanese and World War II and everything else.
So, how do you feel? I mean, you had PTSD.
Yes.
How did you get over it, or did you get over it?
Well, I'm not sure that you ever fully get over it, but you learn how to deal with it. And I learned how to deal with it after a number of years of saying, kind of denying the fact that it was even bothering me.
Really?
Yet it really was.
Really?
So finally, after seeking professional help,
yeah,
some therapy, one of the things that one of the therapists said, and I've found it to be absolutely true, was the best way to sort of rid yourself of those demons, or at least control those demons, is that you talk about it.
Talk about it.
And the more you talk about the kinds of things that you went through,
yes,
the less hold that it has.
Yes. It sets you free, huh? It's like it sets you free.
It does.
Just talk about it.
Yeah. It becomes sort of unreal. It's like
it's just away from you.
It's away from you.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know we talked about this a little bit, that not only is it good therapeutically to talk about this, but this is a part of our history.
Yes, yes.
And if we keep this inside, if we don't talk about what happened, we don't learn from it.
Yes.
And I think that's important.
So do you want to talk more about some details about what happened to you at, when they were shooting at you, some of your friends got killed.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel about that?
At the time, I don't think that you react too much to it.
Yeah.
Just because of the fear, the discomfort, physical discomfort, everything else that's going on, it really doesn't hit you until later on.
Yeah.
Then it kind of sneaks up on you. You sort of build this mental barrier. And again, I think that's the only way that you can really survive being in that situation for that extended period of time. We've learned so much about the treatment of PTSD, since Vietnam, since 9/11, since Desert Storm and all the rest of them, that it's sort of gratifying now that we've sort of woken up to the fact that there are ways of treating this.
There's a lot of people that went to Vietnam and they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's the worst possible thing you can do.
Do you think the best thing to do is just talk about it?
Sure.
Talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to, because you went through so much.
Yeah.
And
well,
talking about it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, talking about it,
sure.
It's the best therapy.
I think so.
So that's what people should know. People should,
Yep.
people in the same situation like you,
Yep.
that they were in the Vietnam War. A lot of people don't want to talk about it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So, what do you think about Jane Fonda now, years later? Now that,
Yeah.
Now that you're older, what do you think about her?
It still bothers me a lot sometimes.
Why?
That she was so insensitive to the plight of the servicemen and women that were there in Vietnam and even in supporting roles. It's one thing to protest, and I have no problem with somebody legitimately protesting something, and positively protesting something. I think that's one of the things that I feel like I fought for in the military.
Yes.
Is our ability to disagree, to protest. But to actively call soldiers, sailors, Marines, people in the military, to question their loyalty, their morals, their character for having served in Vietnam, that to me is unforgivable. And that's what she did. She's since apologized for that, but I guess my character flaw is I have trouble accepting that apology.
So, when you came home, how did you feel about, how did you feel about people treating you when you came home?
That was an incredible disappointment. And before I go into that, it's so, again, gratifying to see how we treat our men and women that are coming back from conflicts today versus what happened to us when we came back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
So I in December, about mid-December of '68, when I rotated home, flew from Okinawa to San Francisco. Landed in San Francisco. I'm wearing my Marine Corps uniform. I get off the airplane. There are protesters there, and they're saying things like, I'm a baby killer, they're spitting on us. And I'm like, my God, what have I come home to? That was bad enough, but I had 30 days of leave. Went home 30 days. My next duty station that I reported to was the Naval Hospital in San Diego. So my first day I show up, I'm wearing my uniform. I report in, had an orientation for us, and this senior chief hospital corpsman stood up and said, first thing I want to tell you is that you need to get a set of civilian clothes. We've got lockers here. You need to keep your uniform in that locker when you go off base. What? He said, don't wear your uniform unless you absolutely have to. Don't wear your uniform off base because you might get hurt. And I'm going, my goodness, this is so bad that I can't even wear the uniform outside of this base. But that was what we were doing.
Let's talk about your medals.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This one is the Purple Heart.
That's Purple Heart.
Can you talk about it? About a few of them?
Yeah, this one, it's Navy Commendation with Combat V. You remember my telling you when I followed the sergeant to pick up the people trying to save those folks. Well, they awarded me the Navy Commendation for having done that. The next one is Combat Action Ribbon. So if you're actually in combat, that's this one. If you're actually in combat, you get Combat Action Ribbon. The one next to it is a Presidential Unit Citation. It was awarded to the 26 Marines.
Wow. You're a hero.
No, I'm not a hero. I did my bit, and there were lots of folks that did incredibly heroic things that I served with.
We're running out of time. Maybe we should have you on again, and we have so many stories. Well, it was so nice having you.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
And if somebody is getting something out of it, they should talk about it. That's what they should do. Talk about it all the time, whenever they can.
I agree.
They're going to feel better.
Yeah, feel better, yep. I agree.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and next time we'll have another interesting guest. Bye.